The National Desk, America's News, now.
You see the number 13 on the backs of so many jerseys, probably more than any other number. Those kids really look up to Johnny Gaudreau. It's going to be a hard session. It's going to be a hard year.
Inside the shocking death of Johnny Hockey and his brother on a day that was supposed to be a celebration. We are 2 months away from the general election, but how many Americans believe that Donald Trump is ready to accept the final outcome? Then Labor Day travel is well underway with record numbers now expected. Ahead, the best times to hit the road and get home for your vacation.
This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Ryan Smith. A busy Friday night as we head into the Labor Day weekend. 45 million Americans now at risk of severe thunderstorms, especially in parts of Michigan where damaging winds are the main threat tonight. Large hail also possible from the Great Lakes to the Mississippi Valley here. The severe weather threat increases tomorrow, impacting nearly 70 million people from the central Appalachians into the Northeast. Hail also a possibility once again for several states. There's a risk of flooding throughout the weekend in the Midwest, Plains, Mid-Atlantic, and Gulf Coast states. Right now, 15 million people are under heat alerts with dangerous temperatures up to 20 degrees above average expected in parts of the Northwest this weekend. Heat-related deaths in the U.S. spiking 117% in the last 2 decades. According to the Journal of the American Medical Association, from 1999 through 2023, just last year, more than 21,000 people died from heat exposure. Researchers now say the trend is likely to continue. The Columbus Blue Jackets now grieving the loss of a star player today. The team announcing that a drunk driver killed forward Johnny Gaudreau and his brother, who were riding bikes in their home state of New Jersey yesterday. Tonight, the National Desk's Kellyanne Stitz reports from Columbus.
Blue Jackets fans and the hockey community continue to process the news of the sudden and tragic passing of Blue Jackets star forward Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew. Members of the Fifth Line, the Blue Jackets fan base, have created a memorial here outside of Nationwide Arena to remember the life and legacy of Johnny Hockey. Hockey fans gathering in front of Nationwide Arena Friday, laying down flowers, donating hockey sticks, leaving handwritten cards, all to pay their respects to number 13.
Last night when I heard about the rumors, it was really concerning. And then you didn't really know, it was a weird one where there was no official anything.
The rumors became a shocking reality, with the Blue Jackets confirming at 7:30 Friday morning that Gaudreau and his brother died in a tragic accident.
When I saw the Blue Jackets announcement, and it was just kind of numbness and shock.
Gaudreau was an 11-year NHL veteran, all-star, and alternate captain for the Blue Jackets, known for his dazzling skills on the ice.
With Johnny Gaudreau, he's got the creativity here.
The joy he played with, I mean, he was just pure joy. I mean, no, didn't have a shred of ego. He just played like he loved the game, because he did.
But fans will remember the way he and his family embraced Columbus in 2 short seasons.
He chose this city. That doesn't happen all the time. And for a superstar like him to choose Columbus, especially when, his hometown team was going for him, it meant a lot.
When his second born, Johnny, was born, I was waiting outside after the game for players, and he took his time to stop, and that's honestly something I will remember forever.
Gaudreau was not only a star on the ice, but a beloved ambassador of the club who will be dearly missed.
He's just a really good advocate for the game. We both coach the Learn to Play for the Blue Jackets, and we use Johnny as an example all the time because the little kids love him and they look up to him. And he's really important to the community.
As fans continue to contribute to the memorial outside of Nationwide Arena, they also say that this tragedy is a sobering reminder to never drink and drive. In Columbus, I'm Kellyanne Stitz reporting.
A police officer is dead. 2 others are in the hospital recovering tonight after a shooting last night in Dallas, Texas. Officers responding to a distress call here and found a colleague shot in his marked vehicle. There was a shootout with that suspect who shot 2 officers. Then we're told he ran away. DPD says police eventually caught up with the suspect and shot and killed him. Former President Donald Trump will headline the annual Moms for Liberty gathering tonight. He's looking to really gain support within his own conservative base, who share the specific view that parents should have more say in their child's public school education. Trump also speaking at a rally in Johnstown, Pennsylvania today. He discussed issues like lowering energy costs while criticizing Vice President Kamala Harris. Trump's campaign notes that in 2019, as the Democratic presidential primary candidate, Harris supported a ban on fracking, but she has since reversed that stance. This after Harris's much anticipated first sit-down interview since entering this presidential race. Now critics are really picking apart what she said last night on CNN. The National Desk's Matt Geltka reports on the fallout tonight.
The most important and most significant aspect of my policy perspective and decisions is my values have not changed.
Vice President Kamala Harris answering for some of her policy position switches in her first in-depth interview since becoming the Democratic nominee. Critics have repeatedly hit Harris on skyrocketing immigration numbers while she's been vice president. She was asked if she still felt the border should be decriminalized like she indicated in 2019.
I believe there should be consequence. We have laws that have to be followed and enforced that address and deal with people who cross our border illegally.
Harris was also asked about fracking, an oil and natural gas technique she previously wanted to ban.
Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020, that I would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
CNN's fact checkers pointed out that's not quite what Harris said in 2020.
Joe Biden will not ban fracking.
I certainly did not hear anywhere in there Kamala Harris saying that she personally had abandoned her previously expressed 2019 view. Rather, again, she was speaking for Joe Biden.
Donald Trump's team continued to rip Harris for flip-flopping.
She says that her values have stayed the same, but then she's gone back and forth on policy, so it's not really lining up of what exactly it is that she means.
If she wants to tackle the affordability crisis, if she wants to lift people up and inspire this country, why hasn't she done it for the last 3.5 years?
While Harris's allies said she did a solid job explaining herself to voters.
I think the vice president, in her interview on CNN, put forward a positive and clear and forward-looking agenda.
Harris also said in the interview her day one agenda would focus on middle-class families and driving prices down, a more moderate track as her opponents try to paint her as far left. For the National Desk in Washington, I'm Matt Gelka.
In the race for the White House, most Americans do not think Trump is prepared to accept the outcome of this presidential election. That, according to a brand new ABC News Ipsos poll. Take a look right here. It shows only 29% of people think Trump will accept the results, but take a look. 81% of people and respondents believe they themselves will, and 68% believe Harris will. Opposition tonight mounting against a comedy roast of Vice President Harris. That's planned for next month at the University of South Carolina, with members of the Proud Boys set to speak at that event. Many are now calling on the university to cancel the event entirely. Some people now say they plan to boycott the school's season opening football game in protest.
I've encouraged the alumni and supporters of USC not to attend the upcoming football games until this matter is resolved.
The school's president saying he is not planning to cancel that event because free expression is constitutionally protected. 2 people have died from West Nile virus now in Wisconsin and Illinois. The CDC now reports 18 deaths from West Nile across the country so far this year. That's out of 289 confirmed cases. But so far, we have seen fewer infections and deaths this year compared to last. Still, the CDC says West Nile is the most common mosquito-borne illness and does pose a serious risk. There's no vaccine or specific treatment. Search and rescue teams discovered the body of a 60-year-old North Carolina man along a remote trail in the Grand Canyon. This now marks the 6th death in the park in less than a month. The backpacker, whose name has not yet been released, was attempting the challenging Thunder River Trail Deer Creek Loop, a multi-day trek known for its rugged terrain and extreme temperature variations. Now, this incident marks the 14th death in Grand Canyon National Park just so far this year. Park officials report that the average number of deaths per year typically ranges from 10 to 15 deaths. Well, it's football season in America tonight, but in Salt Lake City, one of the biggest prep games of the year, it will not happen for tonight or even the rest of the year. The rivalry game between Timpview High School and Provo High School abruptly canceled today by Timpview's principal because of online threats made on a now deleted Instagram handle targeting Provo's coaches, players, even his family members. Now, tonight it's not known if police know who is behind those posts, but an investigation, we are told, is ongoing. Coming up, avoiding traffic tie-ups and travel nightmares this busy Labor Day weekend. Then the latest economic outlook, plus a closer look at what budget experts have to say about the presidential candidates' policies on that issue. Then mental health concerns for young athletes, the alarming new statistics tonight, what colleges are now doing to keep those students safe. Stay with us. We're back in 90 seconds. Labor Day weekend travel is at its peak today. TSA says as many as 2.8 million passengers expected to be screened today alone. 17 million expected to be screened from yesterday through next Wednesday. AAA expects weekend travel, that's going to be up 9%, the agency says, from last year. And that the best time to hit the roads, all to avoid the traffic tie-ups, will be tomorrow mid-afternoon through the evening. But that all changes this Sunday.
If you're coming back on Sunday, you definitely want to hit the earliest possible, definitely before noon, before the roads start to get too congested. If you're coming back on the actual holiday, you want to be on the roads before 10 a.m. You're probably still going to be in some traffic, but the earlier you leave, the better.
Now up north, Canadian freight railroad trains remain in operation, but the Teamsters union representing the workers who sued to block the government's order to keep them open. Just last week, the Canadian government forced arbitration on the railroads and the unions after the two largest freight railroad companies locked out their workers during an ongoing contract dispute. While the union blamed the companies for the work stoppage, they say forced arbitration defies their rights to collectively bargain a new contract. The lockout lasted one day last week. A prolonged work stoppage could have a lasting impact on both Canadian and U.S. economies. Billions of dollars of goods are moved between the two borders each and every month. A fresh read tonight on inflation just out today. It backs up the Federal Reserve's case for an interest rate cut in just a couple of weeks. The cost of living top of mind for voters ahead of November. And a new report just out looks at how the presidential candidates' economic plans would play out in real life. The National Desk's Atra El-Nashar has a closer look.
More progress in the fight against high inflation. The measure of costs that the Federal Reserve pays the most attention to, personal consumption expenditures, shows inflation in July held steady at 2.5%, as expected.
My confidence has grown that inflation is on a sustainable path back to 2%.
With the Fed's target rate within reach, they're fully expected to cut interest rates when they meet again in 2.5 weeks, bringing relief to Americans who've been putting off a home or car purchase.
So what would you do day one?
day one, it's going to be about, one, implementing my plan for what I call an opportunity economy.
We're going to pay down our debt, and we're going to reduce your taxes still further, and your groceries are going to come tumbling down.
Both Vice President Harris and former President Trump making tall promises to voters, but details of how they'll make life easier for the middle class without adding significantly to the national debt are sparse.
I think a lot of what we're hearing is they're competing over who can overpromise more. This is a dangerous game that can lead to very large deficits and, by the way, worsen our inflation challenges in the process.
The nonpartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget says both candidates have policies that could constrain supply. For Harris, it's higher taxes on corporations. For Trump, it's his strict stances on trade and immigration.
When you reduce immigration or do deportations, that reduces our supply of labor.
At the same time, a lot of their proposals would surge demand. For Trump, it's his plan to cut taxes on Social Security benefits. And for Harris, it's her idea to give first-time homebuyers $25,000 for their down payment.
Guess what? Housing prices are going to go up to eat up a lot of that $25,000 tax credit.
As the old adage goes, you campaign in poetry, you govern in prose. Much of what a candidate runs on doesn't come to fruition, at least not exactly as they planned, because it has to get through Congress, the partisan balance of which will also be decided in November. On Capitol Hill, I'm Atrel Nashar reporting.
One of two doctors charged in connection to Matthew Perry's death is out on a $50,000 bond tonight. 54-year-old Dr. Mark Chavez appeared in federal court today. He's now expected to plead guilty to conspiring to distribute ketamine. Now, he admitted in his plea agreement that he got it with a false prescription. He's due back in court in October, according to his lawyer. The subject of the season 1 of the wildly popular true crime podcast Serial could be headed back to prison. Adnan Syed, he was freed back in 2022. He just had his murder conviction reinstated by the Maryland Supreme Court. He's found guilty for the 1999 murder of his ex-girlfriend, Hae Min Lee, and served 20 years before a judge overturned that conviction. The state's highest court saying the rights of Lee's brother were violated when he wasn't given enough notice about that hearing. A lower court will now revisit the case. Syed, meantime, will remain free until that decision is final. Two men from the Dominican Republic are in custody tonight after $6 million worth of cocaine were found on a boat near Puerto Rico. That, according to U.S. Customs and Border Protection tonight. Federal agents seized the drugs totaling more than 660 pounds. Puerto Rico is a common waypoint for drugs smuggled into the mainland United States. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter the most to you. We are taking the pulse of America tonight. We start in California, where a man's electric scooter caught fire.
Spradling says he was on his way to work on McKinley Avenue near Highway 41 when the electric scooter he was riding randomly exploded.
I seen smoke first, and then after smoke, I seen fire, and then I threw down. Then I stood back for a second, then I was like, oh crap, bag, and grabbed my bag. And then next thing I know, it's fireworks show with batteries.
Those batteries flying about 150 feet away from the scooter. Spradling says at one point the fire was as tall as him. Fresno fire crews responded saying the explosion came from the scooter's lithium batteries. Spradling tells us he bought the batteries just a month ago off of Amazon to give his scooter more range. Now he says he would not recommend doing that.
Definitely don't,
I had woke up one morning and one side of my body was feeling a little tingly.
When it happened more than once, Joe went to the hospital.
Thought maybe a stroke or something.
An MRI, however, revealed Joe had a brain tumor, a glioblastoma. Dr. Jay McCracken, a neurosurgical oncologist, explains surgery can remove the bulk of the tumor, but not all the cancerous cells. That's why this cancer, even with aggressive treatments, is so deadly. Enter the FDA-cleared GammaTile therapy.
GammaTile is a form of brachytherapy, which just means that it's an implantable form of radiation.
It's done at the time of surgery, so it's immediate.
They are able to treat the surrounding cells which are left behind. It can be tremendously effective.
Training like a life depended on it.
Martin County Ocean Rescue, Fire Rescue, and EMS crews practicing their response to a call for a missing swimmer and a possible drowning.
Ocean Rescue side calls a codex, and that tells them right off the bat immediately they have a missing swimmer or swimmers, not sure of the age groups or the capabilities of those swimmers. So they deploy all their assets.
These crews trained Thursday, reacting to a planned 911 call.
My friends are in the water and one of them's missing. Like, he just went under and I can't find him and I need help.
The most important factor in these emergency situations, time.
Time is incredibly valuable, probably the most valuable resource that we have, and we want to be as quick and as efficient as possible whenever we have a submerged swimmer.
Next, right here at the National Desk, doctors sounding the alarm about a dramatic spike in college athlete suicides. What's now being done at schools nationwide? Stay with us. We're back in 90 seconds. As students return to campus and fans flock to watch college sports, there's an emerging conversation happening about keeping young athletes safe. A recent first-of-its-kind study now reveals an increase in suicides among college athletes. In tonight's Spotlight on America investigation, Atra El-Nashar explores what's being done to shut down the stigma surrounding mental health off the field. And a warning tonight for you at home that the content of the story may be disturbing for some viewers.
Young athletes dream about their future, setting their sights on a college campus where they can play their heart out and join a storied team with thousands of fans. Morgan Rogers was no different. A standout lacrosse player, she signed on to be a Blue Devil at D1 Duke University.
Everyone knew her as this great lacrosse kid.
Her mom, Donna Rogers, knew her best. Beyond the fierce competitor on the field, she was a skilled artist, a loyal friend with a mischievous sense of humor, and a loving sister. But Morgan's lacrosse career was shattered in 2018. A torn ACL, MCL, and meniscus forced intense surgery and rehabilitation.
So about a year after surgery, that's when she really started to be like, nothing's really changing anymore. Meaning she didn't feel like she was going to be able to come back, and then, then what is she?
Hopelessness took hold in the shadows that Morgan never shared. She died by suicide in 2019. She was 22.
She was pretty vibrant and funny and always around, and she loved life. I just wish we could have known.
No one knew until it was too late. The Rogers, brokenhearted, joining a group of families whose loved ones, athletes, are gone.
Each of these statistics is an individual, and all of these deaths were preventable.
Bridget Whalen is the lead author on a recent analysis that looked at suicides among college athletes over a 20-year period between 2002 and 2022. The proportion of deaths by suicide among NCAA athletes doubled between the first and second decade of the study period. In fact, it's now the second most common cause of sudden death among student athletes.
Athletes are a population that we think of as protected. They have teams around them, they have, lots of positive attention. If they're struggling with something just as much as the general population, then this is a major problem.
The NCAA has published this 19-page document of best practices for mental health among athletes, calling for written plans, training for coaches, annual athlete screenings, and ensuring access to a licensed mental health provider.
I think having these guidelines is a great first step, but now we need, working to reduce the barriers to being able to access them.
We reached out to 20 Division I colleges and universities with questions like, how many sports psychologists are on staff? How often do student athletes undergo mental health screenings? And whether they'd recently audited the wait times for students to access help. None of them answered our questions. To honor her daughter, Donna Rogers founded a nonprofit called Morgan's Message, working to foster the very conversations that could have kept Morgan alive.
You're still her mom. Every time you do something with Morgan's Message, in a way it seems like you're still taking care of her.
That would be awesome. I would love to know that I was doing that. It's scary to think that you could be responsible for helping someone that was in a deep, dark place, but it also feels really good. And it feels like we're doing something that matters.
For Spotlight on America, I'm Atrel Nashar.
Next on the National Desk, catching up on some much-needed sleep this weekend, the new health benefits researchers just discovered for your heart health. That's after the break. Well, you don't have to tell me twice. Weekend sleep-ins or a good Saturday cat nap on the couch, it is great for your heart health. A new study of 91,000 people between the ages of 40 and 69 out of the United Kingdom showed that the participants who got the extra hours of sleep over the weekend, get this, were 19% less likely to develop heart disease over 14 years than those who did not. None of these findings changed based on gender. Now, this study hasn't been published yet, but will be presented at the European Society of Cardiology's annual Congress on Sunday. That does it for this edition on the National Desk. Join us tonight at 10 Eastern for more coverage of America's top stories. I'm Ryan Smith. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend.